All right, I found it. Um, Yet there he was this morning on the school bus, insulting the same pea-brained thug who already held a mortal grudge against him. Sometimes Roy didn't understand what came over him. Sometimes he was too proud for his own good. The last class of the day was American history. I remember now. I couldn't think of where we were. Remember he had a problem with Dana on the bus in the morning, and they had kind of argued, and he was real sassy. And now he had heard from Garrett that there was going to be a fight, that he and Dana were going to have to fight this afternoon. The last class of the day was American history. After the bell, Roy waited for the other students to file out ahead of him. Then cautiously, he peeked into the hall. No sign of Dana Matherson. Roy, is something wrong? It was Mr. Ryan, the history teacher, standing behind him. No, everything's fine, Roy said breezily, stepping out of the classroom. Mr. Ryan closed the door behind him. You going home too? Roy asked. I wish. I've got papers to grade. Roy didn't know Mr. Ryan very well, but he walked with him all the way to the faculty lounge. Roy made small talk and tried to act casual while constantly checking behind him to see if Dana was lurking. Mr. Ryan had played football in college, and since then he hadn't gotten any smaller, so Roy felt fairly safe. It was almost as good as walking with his dad. You taking the bus home? Mr. Ryan said. Sure, Roy said. But isn't the pickup on the other side of the school? Oh, I'm just getting some exercise. When they reached the door of the faculty lounge, Mr. Ryan said, Don't forget the quiz on Monday. Right, War of 1812, Roy said. I'm all ready. Yeah, who won the Battle of Lake Erie? Commodore Perry. Which one, Matthew or Oliver? Roy took a guess. Matthew? Mr. Ryan winked. Study a little more, he said, but have a good weekend. Then Roy was alone in the hall. It was amazing how rapidly schools empty after the final bell, as if someone pulled the plug under a giant whirlpool. Roy listened closely for footsteps, sneaking footsteps, but heard only the tick, tick, tick of the clock mounted above the door to the science lab. Roy observed that he had exactly 4 minutes to reach the bus pickup zone. He wasn't worried, though, because he'd already mapped a shortcut through the gym. His plan was to be among the last to board his bus. That way he could grab one of the empty seats up front and jump off quickly at a stop. Dana and his cronies customarily occupied the back rows and seldom bothered the kids sitting up near the driver. Not that Mr. Kessie would ever notice, Roy thought. He jogged to the end of the hallway and turned right, headed for the double doors that marked the back entrance of the gym. He almost made it, too. Let's be crystal clear about this, Mr. Brannett. You didn't report it to the police? Oh, now we've switched gears. Now we're back to the Mrs. Paul's site. No, sir, Curly said empathetically into the phone. So there shouldn't be any paperwork, correct? No possible way for this latest travesty to end up in the press? Not that I can figure, Mr. Muckle. For Curly, it had been another long, discouraging day. The sun had finally broken through the clouds, but after that it was all downhill. The construction site remained uncleared, the earth-moving equipment still idle. Curly had stalled as long as possible before phoning Mother Paula's corporate headquarters. Is this your idea of a sick joke? Chuck Muckle had snarled. This ain't no joke. Tell me again, Mr. Brannett, every miserable detail. So Curly had repeated everything, beginning from when he had arrived at the site early that morning. The first sign of trouble had been Kalo waving a tattered red umbrella chasing his 4 attack dogs along the inside perimeter of the fence. He was shrieking hysterically in German. Not wishing to be mauled by the dogs or gored by the umbrella, Curly had remained outside the gate, watching in puzzlement. A Coconut Grove police cruiser had pulled up to investigate. Officer Delenko, the same cop who dozed off while guarding the construction site. It was because of him that the spray painting fiasco had made the newspaper and gotten Curly into hot water with Mother Paula's company. I was on my way to the station when I saw the commotion, Officer Delenko had said, raising his voice over the barking of the Rottweilers. What's wrong with those dogs? Nothing, Curly had told him. It's just training exercise. The cop had bought it and driven away, much to Curly's relief. Once the Rottweilers were secured on leashes, Kalo had hustled them into the camper truck and locked the tailgate. Furiously, he turned toward Curly and jabbed the umbrella in midair. You tried to kill my dogs. The foreman had raised his palm. What are you talking about? Kalo had thrown open the gate and stomped up to Curly, who was wondering if he should pick up a rock for self-defense. Kalo was drenched with sweat. The veins on his neck were bulging. Snakes! He had spit out the word. What snakes? Ha! You know what snakes. The snakes is crawling with venom, poison ones. Here, Kalo had wiggled one of his pinky fingers. Poison snakes with shiny tails. No offense, but you're nutty as a fruitcake. Curly never once had seen a snake on Mother Paula's site, and he would have remembered if he had. Snakes gave him the willies. Nuts, you say? Calo had seized him under one arm and led him to the portable trailer that served as Curly's office. There, coiled comfortably on the second step, was a thick mottled specimen that Curly recognized as a cottonmouth water moccasin common in South Florida. Calo was right. It was seriously poisonous, and its tail was sparkly. Curly had found himself backing up. I think you're getting carried away, he said to Calo. Yeah, you think? The dog trainer had hauled him toward the fence to point out another moccasin, then another, and still another, 9 in all. Curly had been flabbergasted. What do you think now? Think Calo is nutsy fruit bar? I can't explain it, Curly had admitted shakily. Maybe this rain brought him out of the swamp? Yeah, sure. Listen, you listen. Each of dogs is worth 3,000 US dollars. That is 12,000 barking bucks here in the truck. What happens? Dog gets bit by a snake. Dog dies, yeah? I didn't know about no snakes, I swear. Is miracles of dogs they all okay? Pookie Face, the snake come after him this close. Calo indicated a distance of about a yard. I take umbrella and push him away. It was just about then that Calo had accidentally stepped in an owl burrow and twisted his ankle. Rejecting Curly's offer of assistance, the dog trainer had hopped on one leg back to the camper. I go now. Don't effer call me again, he said, fuming. Look, I said I was sorry. How much do I owe you? 2 bills I send. Zun for the dogs, Zun for my leg. Aw, come on. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I talk to lawyer instead. Calo's pale eyes had been gleaming. Maybe I cannot no longer train dogs. My leg hurts so much. Maybe I go. What do you say? Disability? For Pete's sake. Mother Paula is very big company, has lots of money, yeah? After Calo had roared away, Curly carefully made his way to the trailer. The cottonmouth was no longer sunning on the steps, but Curly didn't take any chances. He set up a stepladder and hoisted himself through the window. Fortunately, he'd saved the phone number of the reptile wrangler who had successfully removed the alligators from the toilet. The guy was tied up on an iguana call, but his secretary promised he'd come to the construction site as soon as possible. Curly had holed up in the trailer for almost 3 hours until the reptile wrangler pulled up to the gate. Armed only with a pillowcase and a modified 5-iron, the guy had methodically scoured the Pancake House property in search of sparkle-tailed water moccasins. Incredibly, he found none. That's impossible, Curly exclaimed. They were all over the place this morning. The reptile wrangler had shrugged. Snakes can be unpredictable. Who knows where they went? That's not what I want to hear. You sure they were moccasins? I never saw one with a shiny tail. Thanks for all your help, Curly said snidely and slammed the trailer door. Now it was he who was on the receiving end of the peevish sarcasm. Maybe you can train the snakes to guard the property, Chuck Muckle said. Since the dogs didn't work. It ain't so funny. You got that right, Mr. Brannett. It's not funny at all. Them cottonmouths can kill a person, Curly said. Really? Can they kill a bulldozer, too? Well, probably not. Then what are you waiting for? Curly sighed. Yes, sir. First thing Monday morning. Music to my ears, Chuck Muckle said. We'll stop right there. All right, your WH questions for today. How many snakes, how many moccasins did he find in the property? And who happened to stop by? So how many snakes and who happened to stop by just as the dogs were being put into the trailer? All right, 2 WH questions. Hope we're getting to the end of this. I'm not sure how much we've got left, but we may switch gears here when we get to September and have something a little shorter. Anyway, have a great day. Get out and get some sunshine. Talk about animals from the zoo. I will talk to you soon. Bye, you guys.